a story that now is different. Whereas before, when you only saw that box, you only thought, it's just dumb stuff that we do with our brain, right? We do it all the time. Marketers do this. Why? Because System 2 is lazy. Right? System 1 is fast and easy. System 2 takes a lot of glucose to use. We got a lot of sugar now, but back then we didn't. So if I give you this simple puzzle and say, just listen to your gut. A bat and ball cost $1.10. The bat costs $1 more than the ball. How much does the ball cost? Right? It evokes an answer that's easy, intuitive, appealing, and wrong. Because it cost a nickel, but we want to say it cost a dime. Because you think it cost $1 more and it's got to be a dime. Because if it costs a dime, a bat and a ball together are going to be $1.20. You've got to be able to put the ball at 5 cents, because when you add 5 cents to 105, it gets 110. But we don't like the 5 cents, right? We want the dime because it's easy, right? So this is how it works. If you say that it's a dime, you didn't take the extra 3 seconds to run it back through and check your work, right? No, I don't want to check my work. I'm an adult. So System 2 endorses an intuitive answer that it could have rejected with a small amount of effort, right? Students at MIT, Harvard, they all get this wrong. Only half of them. It goes up 80% at their universities. Okay. So we rationalize. This is the last part. Our brains rationalize dishonest behavior. Dan Ariely, wonderful book on dishonesty, discusses another experiment where puts kiddos in college, I think it's at Williams, in a room, and they're supposed to be doing tests, and they're there thinking that they're being paid $15 to figure out all these tests. As always, it's never really the experiment, right? It's just the setup. The setup is they are gradually turning up the heat in the room, and it's getting uncomfortably hot. But in the corner, in one of those kind of wine fridges where you can see, there's a bunch of Cokes. And there's a sign that says, please don't take, these are for personal use or grad students only. Now, in that room as well, there's a stack of dollar bills. And as the heat goes up, they just sit and watch what students do. And invariably, they take a Coke. No one steals the money, because that's stealing. But that's a Coke. It's not really stealing, okay? And they're making me do this anyway. And this is hard, and it's hot. System 1 or System 2, we rationalize these things, okay? And we have this other capacity, which is even worse. So I study securities fraud and white-collar crime, so we do juvenile work and I do adult work. And one of the big issues that we have that we know is that moral licensing happens that when I actively say, I don't like fraud, I don't like these things, that's kind of the biggest red flag of like, you're probably doing something that you shouldn't be doing. Because you're saying to everybody, I don't do this, which gives you kind of this moral license to do something else. And so when it comes time to having a solution, my suggestion is that we're looking to invoke kind of the fast, automatic, no thinking. Remember, I don't trust their brain. I got 50% of my kid's brain, and I don't want them to think. Because I don't trust their thinking. So what do? So I'm looking for automatic responses. What do automatic responses look like? They are black and white. So because when you have the parts of your brain that we want kids to be automatic, right? Just practice your piano and make it really good. Practice soccer that you gotta know. Practice your multiplication tables. These are things that we want them to know. They don't think about it. That's what I want in terms of my conversations with kids about drugs. So when they're in a situation with other kids or there's things, I don't want any processing. I don't want them to have to debate or think or make judgments. I don't want that. I want to make it for them. So here are my thoughts. I don't want there ever to be a conversation where Olivia or Ramona or Joaquin has to think about what to say to someone else. I want this all done ahead of time so they can make an automatic response. What's my job as a parent? My argument is clarity. Black and white. I'll teach nuances later on. Right? I'm teaching black and white. Black and white. Black and white. No gray area. Black and white. Right? What's black and white? We never drink any alcohol before driving. Not 0.08. Not one drink. Not I waited an hour. Right? This sucks for parents. It's really clear. So we're going to talk about hypocrisy in a second. But here's the thing. If you say that, you got to do it. Now, why do I do it? Because there's a lot of DWIs in Austin, right? And maybe someone else will get arrested, but I can't, because then I can't practice law, right? So Corinne and I, the kids have to hear us have all these conversations like, who's going out? Okay, you drink wine. Okay, I won't drink, whatever. Because that's it, right? We never drink any alcohol. And the point that we got where it worked, which was crazy, is I'm at my parents' house down in San Antonio. They've got a little piece of property down by New Braunfels, and my dad's got this like little, called a mule, but it's like this little four-wheeler thing. And I'd been at the holidays last year, and I drank a beer in the afternoon, and then we're getting to go on the little mule, and one of my younger kids, Joaquin, says, "You can't drive that, Dad, you had a beer." I was like, "You're right, I can't." Because I didn't want to have a nuance. I didn't want to say, well, this isn't a car. No, black and white, you're right, you are right. Thank you, I'm sorry, you're right. Black and white, because if I want him to do black and white, then I gotta do black and white. God, it's a pain, okay? So, next, here's where it gets really uncomfortable. So, just because that's my family, doesn't mean it's my dad. And when we went to Chewy's in San Antonio, my dad has a margarita. Our rule that we discuss in our house is we never get in the car if the driver had anything to drink. So what happens when my dad had a margarita at dinner? And the kids said, "We can't go with Lito because he had a margarita." You know, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with discomfort now if at 16 they don't get in the car with their best friend. But it's hard. Right? It's hard. I mean, I see my selection size is so small. You know, I see regret. I see kids whose parents are like, "I don't know why she did this. She's dead, and why would she get in the car with someone that was so drunk?" And so I just think, all right, I'm going to deal with discomfort right now in the hopes that my kids don't have to deal with it at 16 and get ostracized or feel like they're going to be made fun of. If we can just get in that pattern of that, maybe I make it easy for them. That's my job as a parent. Why don't you trust me? You know, this is ridiculous. This is one of the arguments we got. Corinne, man, we hear this. I trust the 50% of your brain that's developed. Yeah. The other video, I don't trust the other 50% at all. Yeah. That one is, okay, it's fine. I trust the 50% of you that's developed. Your motor skills, the judgment, still working on it. That's my part of your brain. Just black and white. There's no discussion. Okay? I never used drugs. Black and white. I never used drugs. Right? Now this is easy for me because it's true. Whereas other kids in high school went to parties, I still played with Legos. I am a terrible introvert. I still am. I like to read. You know, of our kids, 2 are very much like me. My wife dated the captain of the football team, and she kissed many people and did many things. She's like, "You would never have liked me in high school." And I'm like, "You would never have liked me in high school," right? So the argument is, when we talk about hypocrisy, I suggest oh man, I don't know if I can say this now. If your kids might ask you when the last... Yeah, okay, let's go for a second. So for example, if one of your kids were to inquire the last time you might have engaged in intimate contact with your spouse, you would say, "That is none of your business. You don't ask that to me." And I suggest that there is this hypocrisy that we feel like, well, if I did something, I can't lie to my kids. Yeah, you can. And you should. Because there's no duty, it's not an equal relationship. And at 35 years old or 40, if you want to say, "Yeah, I lied about that," okay, fine. Because in the brain it's developing and there's this idea of judgment. Because here's what I do. With moral licensing, we do it as adults. You're a good person. You turned out okay. You did this. And so can I. Words, 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 action. So this is my only answer that I can tell you. I'm sorry, I wish I could say there was some easier way. But that's my take. Because if you look at the Partnership for Drug-Free America, and I've got some slides and you can look at their handouts, they address all sorts of different ways to say it, and I don't think it's good. It's like, well, but the marijuana is different. That was in the 70s than it is now, and what we know more about brains is different. I just think, I don't hear it. It's legal in these states, and this and that. We'll talk a bit about what that looks like, because this is kind of the hypocrisy vigilance, right? I don't want to be a hypocrite. I teach my kids to be honest. How can I then be hypocritical? So I will say there's two parts of it. The first, hypocrisy vigilance, is just really related to drinking and to those things. Because Austin is a tough culture. We see ourselves as a very young city, very hip, lots of live music. It's a tough place to have addiction. I will be really honest. One of the first things when we got a kid with an addict, we send them out of here. You've lost your Austin privileges. You've just lost them. It's just not a great town that's very conducive to recovery. It's a great town conducive to fun, but go to Abilene, right? Go somewhere, go to Utah. Go somewhere where there's not that same culture, okay? Because this is it, right? What you do speaks so loudly, I cannot hear what you say. And who better to hear this than a teenager? Than to not have to hear you, because I'm going to fight with you. I'll just watch what you do and follow. So in the hypocrite dilemma, which is completely legit, right? These are the questions, how would you rather drink alcohol, but you smoked when you were younger? How harmful could it be? The Partnership for Drug-Free America has a million answers, and they're all good. They're just good talking points, right? Marijuana is a plant. Yeah, so is poison ivy. Would you like to rub it on you? It's a plant. Next argument? Okay. I mean, they're just arguments, right? Just have a better one. Would you rather drink alcohol? No and no. They both destroy your brain. Next. Well, it's legal. Okay, let's talk about that for a second. And there's this pot kid. I'll get to this. I smoke pot, and I'm fine. Everyone I know smoke pot. I still know productive people that smoke. I occasionally smoke. We'll talk about those things, because there's this whole notion of the cool parents dilemma as well, which we all know about. There's generally somebody that's saying, I wanted the kids to drink at my house and not someone else. That way I know what they're doing. So let me suggest some solutions related to all of this before going into the line by line. I think it's an easier thing. You get to choose whatever code of Hammurabi you want. Here's ours. So the first basis for the code is the following. You care about your report cards. We care about your report cards. We know that the best grade you can get is an A+, and the worst grade you can get is an F. Right? We expect in our house A's and B's. We expect effort. Take a hard class and get a C or a D, as long as you're challenged, rather than take an easy class and get an A. Now, our society kind of has the same thing as a report card. If you get arrested, that means you got an F. You broke a rule that was deserving of failing, so we had to arrest you. Just because you did not get arrested puts you at a D. We don't live with D behavior. We live with A and B behavior. So just saying I'm not doing things that are illegal, that doesn't impress me. That's saying I'm not failing. We don't expect that. Our family expects better than just not failing. That's why we do community service. That's why we vote. That's why we do a lot of things than just exist in this society or break society's laws. So the first thing is that we raise the benchmark to above the law. Just because you get in trouble with the law doesn't mean that's not something you don't get in trouble with your family code. These are two separate statutory things. This is just the law, the Code of Hammurabi. That's the baseline for what we expect. Don't murder people, right? Don't rob people. That's not a guide for how to live. We go to church with all these things trying to find our codes. So if you've got black and white on the one idea of what you want, and if our goals are no thinking, here are some of the things. So we have, like, in our house, since we have a small business, one day we're like, why don't we have a business plan for the family? Like, we have core values and objectives and BHAVs for the business. Like, why don't we have them for our kids? So we had figured a few things out. And so some of the things that we talk about as our code, and this is our family, right? We just kind of use these things, right? Our family code says we don't consume alcohol until age 21. It's our family code. Why? Because your brain is still developing, and ideally we like to say not until 25. And Corinne and I just had a debate last night when I was working on the slide. I said, I think it should say 25. She's like, yeah, but girls are different than boys, and I think it's and she goes, I think our other family code solves this, right? One of the other things is get safe first. If you've made a mistake, one of the other things that we see is then you try to overcompensate and make up for that bad mistake. So if you can just get safe first, if you're in a bad situation, just call us. Consequences later, get safe first. Just get safe first. We don't keep secrets. This is more kind of like sexual abuse and touching and those kind of things, but it's a fundamental value that we can all just say, we don't keep secrets. And when there's a secret, or when someone lied the other night about whether they made their lunch, and they asked to keep a secret, there's a big consequence. This is kind of shock and awe, right? You violate one of these things, we come down, because we have to protect the core of what we're saying. And so Corinne's argument was, I think 21 is okay because we don't do anything in excess covers that. Because before it was like, we don't drink to get drunk, but it was just like, no, what if we don't do anything in excess, right? We just believe in moderation. We don't eat too much Halloween candy, we don't work out too much, like we just are balanced. That's our job. We don't study too much, we try to have balance, okay? Now, our family takes drug tests to be healthy. Mom, Dad, everybody. It hasn't happened yet, but it will, because the 13-year-old is getting ready to go to high school, and it will start in high school. And it's a trick that I learned from one of the treatment providers. And I said, but oh my God, are you serious? Like, you really want me to try? There's no way she uses, oh. They're like, look, if your kid has a family that drug tests every month, and they are offered something, and all of their friends know, your parents are so strict, they drug test you? You've just given your kid an excuse not to use and save face. Forever. They never have to say no and feel like they're in a bad position, because I'm the bad guy. And I'm okay with that, because I don't think they necessarily want to use. And if this either has the right way of giving me data, if they did, or gives my kid a really good automatic stop sign, like my parents drug test me, there's no way I can do that. Oh, it's so unfair. I don't care if they say 20 million things about me, but as long as they don't do it, and this is a basis for it, I don't know, we haven't tried it yet. But it's someone that had suggested our family to be healthy, and mom takes one and dad takes. We all take. Yeah.
What age do they start?
So high school was what this therapist had said, is why don't you start in high school? Because I was like, you really want my second grader? She's like, no. I don't think the first and second grader need to take the drug tests. But starting in high school, and I think the way that Dr. Collier talked about it is you're getting more independent, and we're not seeing you as much. It used to be in elementary school, we walked you to class, we saw your teachers. In middle school, we see you less. Man, in high school, it's just even less and less and less. And so that's just the way that we're going to check base. And it's just what our family does. And so when it becomes like our family just does this, and the idea is this is where we live, not here, I own part of your brain, sorry. But yeah, I can't tell you, I don't know how it's gone yet. I got to tell you, this is just I'm reporting.
But it's very objective. I like that. It can be objective, and it kind of keeps you into a different space than being the one that continuously fight back against stuff.
Yeah, I don't want to get involved into a rational argument. Right. Because I might lose. I really don't. I just want to set up things where I don't have to feel like I explain. This is just kind of it, right? And so in that same capacity, a book called Wonder has a really good thing. This was kind of our first family code. Given the choice between being right and kind, we chose to be kind. Like, that was just a wonderful thing we loved. And so that kind of started this off before we got into the idea of drugs and alcohol. Because the idea of any of this is that we, like you said, I want to eliminate the need for my kids to have to be courageous. Because I was not in high school. I mean, if some popular person offered me anything to be popular, I would have done it in a heartbeat. I did not have a backbone. I didn't. So these little instant drug tests that you can buy on Amazon, they're real simple. If you have a monthly calendar, you just dip it in urine, and it gives you kind of it's an NIK kit. They use it over at Gardner Vets in juvenile court. They're real simple. Whether you find anything in it or not, it's just this idea that it's out there. It's kind of how we lawyers use polygraph tests and how police use them. It's not whether you take one or not. It's how do you react to my suggestion that you take a polygraph test or a drug test really gives me some good data. I don't care if it's admissible or not. So the same kind of thing here. Collier is out of Houston, and so there's this council on drugs and education, and so the slides on the brain came from her. She and Corinne and another lawyer did part of this presentation to families over at St. Andrews or St. Stephen's, and they brought her in. She's wonderful, really, really neat. And then we've also run kind of discussion groups with teenagers, and so parents are in one room and then teenagers are in another one just to kind of talk. And so there's another whole component about the law. But the more that we talked about the law, the more that we realized like it wasn't as important as just kind of figuring out what parents wanted to know in terms of talking. So with that, I will pause or stop for questions or discussions. Yes, ma'am.
Two things.
Yes.
Is this your whole family code? Did you share all of it with us?
No, I think I don't have all the values. That was just some of the parcels that we took out for drugs.
Okay. And then I have to, my daughter did.
Hey! So, always hard to spell, but great to say.
Yeah.
So, yes. Yes, ma'am.
Something I learned not long ago about the AISD's policy about having possession of a class 2 medication. Could you go over that just real quick?
Sure.
Like if someone has one of their ADD meds in their pocket?
Yeah. So the way it works is that we've got some other slides. So generally when I possess something, like if I have my dad's Xanax, and it's his prescription, but it's mine, it's going to be a misdemeanor. But when I can get in certain areas, like drug-free school zones, it bumps up all my penalties to a felony. So that's the first problem, is that kids don't realize, well, I have someone else's Adderall, is that really a felony? And so because of the way the law works, we want to protect people from selling drugs at schools, and we want to prevent kids from trading drugs. So it leads to the discretion twofold. Number one, of the school, of how they want to be able to handle it, because they don't have to make a referral to Gardner vets. There are mandatory removals, there are discretionary removals, but yeah, typically I will tell you, I mean, the way it looks like is if you are giving your meds to someone or selling meds, your record is a distribution of a controlled substance. Drug dealer is what it looks like on a record. And so, yeah, a lot of the problems that we see. Now, I will tell you, juvenile court has been wonderful over here at Gardner Vets. There's a lot of diversion programs. You don't get your record destroyed. You stay out of trouble, those kind of things. But no, it's a big deal. And partly it's because I pull up all the AISD kind of drug-related offenses. I mean, it's just so prevalent. Everybody, a lot of kids have meds. And other people say, well, this helps me take a test. Do you want one? Most of the time, those are never being reported, right? Most of the time, they're not being, the SRO is not making an arrest.
But even if it's their own med, right?
If it's their own med, then it needs to be go ahead.
And it's something that they have possession of and other people see it. Isn't that some kind of offense?
No, if you have a prescription for a medication that you have, it's not illegal to possess that. Now, every single, so we're talking about the law versus school. So let's start with that. So I'm talking about the law. So it's not ever illegal to possess my own medicine. I can't get arrested for that. I can get arrested if I give my medicine to someone else. Second, every single school, so from AISD, which is governed by the education code, to their own school rules about we want all meds with the nurse, or we want they can do whatever they want. They can make whatever rule. They can search your backpack. I mean, they can make you consent to anything. It's not necessarily illegal, but so a lot of these cases involve some sort of discipline in a school setting that don't necessarily get over to my world, where it's a criminal setting. I may not be answering your question still. Your question is, can I not possess my own meds?
No, it's good to hear your perspective, because that's not what I read in the AISD policy.
Tell me what you read, or where.
Well, this came through the TMA, Texas Travis County Medical Association newsletter, and it was explicitly stating that if you have your own medication that you're planning on taking later in the day and you're found with it, that it's against AISD policy and it can lead to charges.
So I'll tell you, in my experience, not that I've seen every case, I've never seen a case where a kiddo with their own meds has ever been arrested or given to the principal's office unless they're sharing or giving it or trading it or selling it. It doesn't mean that an individual principal or vice principal can say, we're going to enforce this policy to the letter because of the problems that we've had. So again, this is kind of the report card. The law sets a pretty low threshold, and schools are able to set a higher one. But no, I've never heard of that law under the Health and Safety Code that says it's illegal to possess your own prescribed medication.
And Ms.
in a school.
Carter, you're with the administration, I don't know if you know what Feeling's policy is about prescription medication.
Yeah, what you're saying is right. I have never experienced criminal charges in a situation like that either, unless they're giving it to other people or selling it. But the district policy or school policy is that it needs to be in a prescription container, and if there is a prescription drug here, it needs to be with the nurse. Unless there is some sort of situation, like kids carry around inhalers, some kids carry EpiPens, emergency things like that, that's different. The nurse knows about it, we all know about it. But if it's a prescription drug on this campus, it needs to be with the nurse. Unless there's circumstances that dictate that that kid needs to have it with them.
I just,
Thank you
we
for
have
clarifying.
scheduled this talk till 9, but what David is saying is so riveting that you can see why I invited him to come speak. So are you willing to stay around for a few more minutes to
What do you
ask
mean?
questions? But feel free to
That's fine.
leave if you need to, but we can
No,
stay for a few more minutes.
so
to answer
thank you so much for
questions.
clarifying that, because one of the things I didn't say is, so it's the baggies, right? It's the stuff
Yeah.
that I
Well-
cringe. Like, I'm assuming that you're carrying it in your own prescription bottle, which is really different than having it in like an unmarked.
Yeah.
That's where an SRO is like, what is this and why do you have it? And it would give me fits and starts.
Well, kid had an Adderall in a baggie in the console of their car. The drug dogs came, hit on it, we found it. Ultimately, everything was fine. She had a prescription, blah, 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 but it took a great deal of time to come to that conclusion. But, that wasn't here, by the way. Obviously, kids don't drive.
I was so confused.
I know, I saw a few faces that, no kids drive in middle school, but,
But do we have school by school statistics and information?
so,
I pulled the open record. You mean for what drugs are being found and whatnot? I pulled all the open records requests just trying to see, and I didn't see as much as I had thought. Honestly, I thought I would see a lot more.
yay.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's good. So, but yeah, if there was I'm so sorry I didn't bring it. The AISD has a liaison, and someone did ask for this recently. So they have all of the data pulled up by every single school to look at offenses. But here's a really good distinction. I asked for arrests, right? I'm looking for criminal records because that's a different thing that can be identified. There's a million different things that we do as a social emotional learning component, which are just kind of talking and interventions that don't necessarily get written up into a record. So again, the stuff that I was looking for is when it leads to actionable legal consequences. I cannot imagine how many. Let's just discuss about whether that was a good choice, and let's not. I mean, that's kind of what's not going to be marked down, and I don't think it needs to be marked down. And so,
So, a lot of our kids are heading into high school, and we're thinking about what high schools to go to. And one of the things, I hear little comments from people that are like, oh, Anderson, they have a lot of drug problems there, or this school or that. And, I take that into account. I mean, a lot of factors